Hey everyone, this is my exclusive interview with Melanie Scrofano. It's not just me, it's also LGBT fans deserve better and Way Hotties, so make sure to check out their material as well. When I look back at Love Fan Fest, this interview and my conversations with her off camera were the most emotional ones, and they still stick by me. She is such a warm and friendly person. As Wynonna Earp, she's a pretty tough chick, but she's so sweet, so sweet. And what I absolutely admire about her is that she's really not afraid to be vulnerable. And to me, that actually shows strength. So I just admire her. Yeah, I did before, and now I do even more. I really like her. Okay, so I feel like I need to explain why we have such a hilarious start of the interview. A, she was extremely jet lagged. And B, well, let's just say that 10 minutes before this interview, she had her panel and she revealed quite a few embarrassing things about Cat and Dom. So I wanted to ask her immediately when I saw her, hey, have you heard from Cat and Dom? Because, that was... yeah, interesting. My question would be, right now?
Why am I scared?
No. Have you heard from Cat or Dom right in between this panel and this moment now? Have you already heard from them?
Oh. What'd you do?
No, you during your panel. No, you during your panel.
I was just asking.
Oh no, guys! I don't want to know what they thought of my panel. So bad. So they might not renew their contracts. I don't know.
All right. So, slightly more serious questions. Are you ready? All right.
Yeah.
I forgot everything.
I always feel like I'm the one asking serious questions.
I completely forgot
things.
everything. So.
All right.
I got one later, but go for it.
Can you remember the first character or time that you felt represented, or the most impactful character that you can recall for yourself, growing up?
I have never been asked that before.
Perfect. I always want to ask questions people aren't asked.
I love those. It might take me a minute though.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Now I'm just going to talk out loud because I don't have an answer. But it's funny because I always grew up in Canada. It's mostly Anglophone, but there's some Francophone. Half my family is French Canadian, and then the other half are immigrants. I'm first generation from Italy, so I have this weird I don't know, I don't quite feel Canadian, although I do now, but I'm saying growing up. I didn't quite feel Canadian, and I didn't feel Italian, so I had this weird not knowing where I lived sort of thing. I think the image that comes to mind is Buffy, because she was an outlier in her world, and she didn't quite fit in. And I don't know, I just remember really connecting with that character and wanting to be like her. And I don't know if that's all related, and I don't know if I think I felt represented, but more from a place of that she's an outsider too, and I really look up to her, so maybe it's okay to, I don't know. Is that
cool. Yeah, no, it's
an
a
okay
perfect
answer?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
really
a lot of
question.
us attached to Buffy, even we didn't have LGBT representation, so we just kind of attached to whoever we could that was in. I think Outsider's a perfect answer. I think that we all kind of attach to outsiders in general.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Wynonna's kind of like that too, right? So
yeah.
She's an outsider. She's kind of awkward. She's kind of weird. So we're like, oh yeah, we could be awkward and weird too. It's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you got.
I was wondering if you ever do you have? Sorry, English. If you get a script, do you ever feel because Wynonna gets thrown horrible words at her all the time, do you ever feel do they have to say that to her all the time, all the whore and whatever, constantly?
You saying is she ever upset with
yeah, when she reads the script,
there was one script I had a really hard time with, which was I hated that character. It was Joan. I think his name was Jonas.
Oh, the Revenant.
The Revenant, who I thought
yeah.
maybe might be the death.
Yeah.
I hated him. I don't remember what he said.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah, I can't remember the words, but I
I don't.
remember what I felt.
remember feeling
The
icky about
feeling
it.
is-
It was
Yes.
disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, it was disgusting. And every
something
other...
like have you come back for more or something or other.
Yeah, but it was
Well,
more like
no,
okay,
it was
like,
basically the
your
whole
legs
thing.
were so easy to spread like
Yes,
butter or
like,
something. Like
it was stuff like that. Like, it just basically everything you said. And the guy who played it did a great job. Like, I was like, I fucking hate you. Get off the set. Like, but there was something very, like, triggering about that where, as a woman, you walk down the street and when you're treated like property or whatever. I think that's what he was doing, was treating her like property.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so much the words. It's because words, it's like sometimes when people call you those things, you feel more powerful because you're like, oh, cute, you don't have the words to figure out. Like somebody on Twitter recently was like, take a Midol. And I'm like, oh, you're so dumb. Like, you don't even have a good argument. So you're just saying the stupidest, easiest thing.
Yeah.
So sometimes words are not as, it's more just like the behavior around them.
the energy.
The energy about it and the intent with it.
So we're starting to see a movement away from white male lead characters. Do you feel like you're starting to see, I don't know if you're reading for other parts with doing Wynonna, but do you feel like you're starting to see a little bit more diverse character breakdowns or more in-depth character breakdowns and roles that you're looking at or reading for?
Yeah, now that you mention it, I haven't really been reading, like as in auditioning. What I have noticed is and maybe like take this with a grain of salt, I live in a bubble. Like I live in a very liberal bubble. So I don't know what the world actually is. But I know that my world has become very conscious of it and always trying to, to flesh out stories in terms of any type of diversity, just not having the same sort of narratives. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
I absolutely. I honestly, and maybe I'm just naive, I do feel like it's coming.
It's shifting.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it's just
Like I can.
slow.
I can.
I would
Yeah,
say it's shifting.
happening a little bit
You
at a
would
time.
too. That
Yeah.
feels good. That it's not just in my head.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. I mean, you can tell even with the award shows and stuff. They commented that 2005, The King's Speech won like best movie picture. In the last 2 years, we've had very diverse movies win best picture.
Right.
I mean, I think I read an article a couple months back that said they did an analysis of every movie that had ever won like an Academy Award, and one gay character had ever had a happy ending in any movie, because
Yeah, I heard that.
until the 80s,
Yep.
the Hays Code said that gay characters weren't allowed to have happy endings. It was actually against the rules.
Yes.
What's the
Um,
Hays Code?
It was a code that Hollywood created that said that any characters that were considered deviant couldn't have happy endings, and gays were considered deviant. It was written in like the 30s, I think, or
Yes.
like the
The
40s.
books had to go by that too.
Yeah, so everything had to follow the Hays Code, so you couldn't, no deviant
But
people
that's
that
evil.
were considered deviant by the church couldn't have a happy ending.
No, you
It
could
was-
write them, and you could even keep going, and it could be a beautiful story, but you had to wrap it by something
They couldn't
awful
have- yeah.
happening, or like the wife would go back to her husband, or one
yeah,
of them would
it's so boring.
die, or something along those lines.
That's horrifying.
I think like Moonlight winning is a shift, though. Like you see a definitive. I think we're seeing a definitive shift.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt, and I don't know. Like I tend to. I don't think I'm being naive, and it makes me feel better that you guys think so too.
I don't think you're naive.
No, I it's like it's because I certain things have happened in the world that were surprising. So I was like, oh, I live in a bubble. That's when I realized, like, I live in a bubble. So that's why I'm hesitant sometimes to
Well,
be
as
too.
I told you, I live in a small western Pennsylvania town, and
Yeah.
it's not uncommon for instance, the guy I worked with the other day said there's a bird flying around in our warehouse. He's like, I could go get my shotgun out of the truck. Like, that's not overly uncommon.
Yeah.
I get yelled at every time I walk into a bathroom.
Where?
everywhere.
Everywhere.
All the time. You don't belong here, and then turn around and they're like, oh, oops. Or
Yeah.
or my favorite, you get they'll open the door and they'll see you, and then they'll like
They'll
check
the
the sign and then look
Oh,
at you
that
and then
is
check
always
the
so
sign.
much fun.
Like you're like, hey, girls can have short hair too.
Yeah.
Hi. Even better, they walk out and then walk back in. That's always fun.
That's always fun.
But I think
you just have to laugh at it because it just kind of becomes part of your existence. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, I am sorry to hear that. Yeah, like I said, I think I live in a bubble. And I think I like to see, but I do think there's a shift, and like as the more people, like we're at this festival, like people's parents, like I'm hearing stories of like such acceptance and like goosebumps and like people being people's parents who maybe wouldn't have ever been accepting until their own child, you know, who they adore. They're like, oh, and then that spreads. I do think
It is shifting. Because
Yeah.
I've had people I've known my whole life who I know were against it, and slowly but surely they've come to cope.
well, they have to because they know
Yeah.
because
Well,
they know
that
you.
wasn't even before they knew me. Like,
Oh, well, that's even
that-
better.
like it. Slowly
It's
but
like it's
surely-
impossible to. I feel like it's impossible to think that way
But I also can
if
say
you know the person, like you know the stories.
it took my dad 9 years to accept the fact that I was gay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was very
Not for
recent.
I'm not saying for everybody, but
Oh,
like
yeah.
as a whole.
Oh yeah.
This is how I see it, and that's why I hope I'm not wrong.
No, most people, if it happens in your own family, you finally start to contemplate because you've known them their whole life.
Exactly.
That person becomes the representation
Yes.
for an entire community.
It's not just an idea now. It's
Yeah.
like it's yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
heard
changed
it-
my whole church kind of. So
I heard an interesting story recently. Actually, I started dating a black woman, and she said that her husband's family is racist except for her. Like they're totally cool with her, but they're still racist to everyone else. They're from like Missouri or something. And I was like,
That's
really
interesting.
It's very strange. Like they're like, you're fine. We love you. Like you're great. But like, and I'm like,
I think
wait,
it
what? Like I don't understand.
just takes for. It
It
feels
does
like it takes forever for
so
the
long to teach
the wheels to
to turn.
But to your question, I think it's inevitable.
So how do you feel about watching I'm assuming you're learning about the impact on the LGBT community through
Oh, yeah.
working on Wynonna Earp. Like how has that felt, like watching kind of that whole thing evolve and the impact that you guys are having? Like I know that you're less like you're still very much attached to it, but not as in depth as like Kat and Dom.
Right. So I grew up with some of my friends being openly gay at a young age. So it was never, but but having been friends with them and stuff, I never, I guess, heard the story from the outside in the sense of like, I don't know, we just knew each other for so long that, so now coming here and I get to hear stories and really like Emily, she was actually really helpful in, because I don't, just in general, news and industry stuff about the industry, except for like certain things. I'm sorry, I'm starting to babble. Try to be more concise. But Emily, when I think it was season 1. The barrier gaze thing had happened,
Yeah.
and I didn't know anything about it. And she was like, okay, so here's what happened. And she just really educated us. Like she didn't just write LGBT content. She is very much interested in how awful that whole narrative was of I didn't know that was a rule.
Yeah.
Exactly what you were saying. Or at least I think I've heard of it, but I in my head it was like, that can't be a real thing, you know what I mean? But anyway, so it's just opened my eyes in a way that I would have never known the real
Impact.
pulse. No, but the impact, like the like if you think of a uterus pulsing inside the woman, which we were just talking about at lunch, which is another story. But like that's the image of like there's a whole inner life.
Do you think it made it more memorable? Like, will this role go down in your memory even better just because you made this type of impact for
without a doubt.
one group?
Without a doubt. But it's also just feeling like it's just such a an open, welcoming, a lot of cons. I don't know, I haven't quite put my finger on it yet because I don't know, but there's like a sharp edge sometimes to some of the fans. I don't know if it's just because they're like, talk faster, Melanie. I don't know how.
It's okay.
There's like a coldness to it almost. But here it's just like this warm embrace. Like it's just it doesn't seem like anybody is excluded, and I think that's symbolic of our fandom, but I think more to the point, and I think it's why I had friends when I was little, it's more symbolic of the LGBT community, like
I would, yeah.
For the
Absolutely.
most part.
Yeah, not
I'm sure
everyone,
there's
but
always
this is
exceptions,
in-
but I don't
It's
know.
like going to Pride, right? It's just like very inclusive. Like it doesn't really matter who you are. Like we all have something in common, so we all kind of love each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
So they want us to hurry up. Can I just ask
Yeah,
like
okay.
one
Can
last?
I finish one thing?
Yeah.
Just, I can't, I'm sorry.
You want me to go first? Or then you, okay. How do you like? Man, I guess I'm trying to combine like 3 questions into one. Like knowing that you have like this, like LGBT fans are notoriously loyal. How do you feel about knowing that any project that you move forward going on, like even though you're not playing a gay character, like you're still gonna have this contingent of fans that are gonna follow you? Do you think that that'll affect the roles that you'll take in the future, or will it be something that you consider about your roles in the future?
I don't know, because I've never pictured life beyond Wynonna. Like, will I even have a career? I don't know. That made my heart swell. That it feels like that makes me very happy. To think that there would be people following you.
oh yeah,
Oh, for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I can't think of the scenarios of like what I would be offered and how that would.
Could it maybe change? Like if you read a role that you knew had negative representation, would you maybe like be like, maybe I don't want to be a part of that project, or maybe kind of talk to them about the negative impact that they're going to have now that you're aware of it?
Oh, I don't think I would ever do something with negative representation. I hope, like, unless I completely just somehow didn't see it. Yeah, I think I've never been in the position where I've had to think about other people. Like, I literally was like, I'm hungry, I'm going to take this role, and until Wynonna. So I've never had to think about it. I would never take something I thought was disrespectful to anyone, unless I thought it shared a greater message, but even that you have to be careful, because some people would then take it as like, see, we're right, you know what I mean? Like, people are dumb. You have to hand walk. Yes, of course. I would never have done that anyway.
What? Hey! Oh no, I can't go to YouTube's page yet because I don't have enough subscribers. If you want more queer content, and I think you do, subscribe to my channel. Help me out.